Hello and welcome to the Social Good Podcast. I am Ayush and I'm with my friend Pranav. And we are doing a series of conversations around the education system and how we teach our children and how we teach our adults, right? We've talked about the roles of the education system. We've talked about getting jobs. Like, is that one of the primary roles? We've talked about life skills that people have, and is that how can the education system do well in that goal, right? And during our conversation in life skills, like I had a very like strong opinion that people don't think critically and they don't have critical thinking. And what I realized during the conversation was that people do have critical thinking, but only in their narrow area of expertise. And somebody is a carpenter, is a very good carpenter, it makes excellent furniture, but when it comes to applying the same principles, like the same broad principles in other areas of his life, like health and wealth and relationships, and thinking critically about them, he's unable to do it, right? That was like one of the big realizations for me, Pranav, in last week's episode. And then we touched upon the idea of independent thinking, right? The ability to think outside your context, your canvas of choices that we have. And I first time in my life I realized that independent thinking is different from critical thinking, right? I can go around like talking about critical thinking and trying to explain to people to think critically in all areas of life, uh, but they'll not do it because they're not able to think independently. Like they're not able to think that this is a very narrow field, or they are always making choices within a very narrow canvas, and they have the ability to actually just take a step back, or and then think more broadly. I don't know, this is a very long-winded intro, but but I wanted to do an episode on independent thinking. I think I have like a couple of strong opinions about them, which I want to get into. Just long way of saying, welcome, Pranav. How are you?
Thank you, Ayush. Fantastic introduction. I am absolutely ready to jump into that conversation of
Yeah.
uh, understanding why people are not able to transfer their critical thinking, as well as
Yeah.
tying it up with how you think about independent thinking, and
Yes. Yes.
then asking ourselves, what do schools
Yes.
do or not do
Yes.
to
Yes. Or
make
what
it
our
happen?
education system to do. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. The broader education system can do as well. So let's
Yes.
get into it. Tell me, late on me,
Yeah.
what do you think, and how should we
Yeah.
how should we go about it?
So think about this, right? That uh, uh, we all have, and this goes back to our series on work that we did, right?
Hmm.
And what we discussed there, that one of the central points there, and one of was that I was not able to understand why. The context of that series was that I quit my job and started working for myself, and I feel like that I have more freedom, and I'm probably able to live a much more fuller life
Hmm.
than my corporate career. And that took me 11 years to get there, right? 11, 12 years of corporate slavery to realize that this is not the life for me.
Hmm.
And I think that many people are not able to make that choice for themselves. They're not able to think beyond the context that they're given. And in that, let's say in that context, they have like a career track that society has told them that this is what they should do your UG, do your PG, do your get a job, and get promoted, and keep getting promoted, and keep getting promoted, and then get retired,
Hmm.
right? So all the choices, all the life choices are made within that context, within that narrow canvas of the of what society, and dare I say the education system like gives them.
Hmm.
But when I look at my son, like he's 8 right now, and he's not bounded by his canvas of choices is not bounded by anything, right? He can, like, he's an explorer. I like to say that he's an explorer, and he just goes broad and into anything and everything, and there are no no's for him. Like he never thinks that this is something that's not possible, or this is something that I should not be doing. Right? If there's anything interesting that comes up, pops up in his head, or if he sees around, and he's like, why can't I do that? and I'm afraid, I'm scared that over the next 10 years, as he goes through school, he's the education system will probably kill or restrict his ability to think independently of the choices that he's being provided. Is that how do you think? Is that too convoluted? Or what do you think about this?
So let me relay back the basics that I understood. This is a very important setup. Like I know as the next generation of kids, especially, and it becomes very real when it is our own kids. For many people, get into the schooling system, and you don't see that it has changed as much from your time, or heavens, it has gotten worse. Then it's a problem, and part of it, the way you're setting it up is that kids have a lot of independent thinking. When they are very young, they're thinking broadly, they're explorers. And when they go through school, by the end of it, they develop, from a work perspective, critical thinking in a narrow band, but it comes essentially at the cost of independent thinking. So if that is capturing what you're setting up, then at the basic, I think I agree with most of the premise that kids do exhibit a lot of independent thinking. And I also do understand that, take a kid input into our current schooling system, along with the pressures that the parents have. So it is not just the school, but the pressures that parents are under, or the competition that they are thinking towards, the career focus that you have, right? Along with all of that. So let's just not say schooling, but education system with all its other stakeholders. And you get on the output a sort of teenage or an adult 20 something who might be reasonably good to very good on a specific type of thing, but perhaps has lost their independent thinking. So like I think if that is the setup for the most parts, I guess for all the parts, I agree with the basic summarization of the setup. So now let me put it back to you and ask what, maybe clarify for a bit, what is critical thinking at the end, because everybody comes out with a different set. And is it enough? Is it not enough? And what is independent thinking? So like, let's say, what does an adult who has independent thinking, perhaps having spent some more years outside of the education system, would look like? So that it becomes clearer to me as well as anybody hearing on the distinction between critical and independent thinking, the way you are making it.
Right. Let's make this a bit visual. Okay, let's visualize a box. Right, and there are in that box, let's say there are 5 choices, and that we're going. And as software engineer, or as a manager, this is the box that I live in. Let's say, right, this is the box that my life lives in. And if I'm very good at my job, life is just to back up. I think life is just about making the right choices at every moment. And it's about decision making, and if you're able to make the probabilistically right decision at every step, then you would have lived like a decent life, right? So coming back to our box, and as a manager or a software engineer, sorry for the gyans, but yeah, let's say there's our manager or software engineer, he lives in the box. And that box, in this box, he gets dropped like 1 choice or 5 choices every day, right? And from the top, and then he looks at every choice, and he analyzes it deeply, and he knows his skill very well. He's very good at his job. then he makes the right choice like 90% of the time, right? 4 out of 5 times, or let's say 80%, 4 out of 5 choices that he gets, he's able to break each choice down into the good and the bad, and probably run simulations and look into the future and know that which choice is going to be more like is going to be better for his job or for his career for the situation, for the box that he is in, right? So a software engineer will have his own box, an MBA will have his own box, and people who are very good at finance, okay, at managing their money, they will have their own box, and within that box, everyone is getting a couple of choices every day. In every situation in life, and they are just within that box, they are like doing all the analysis, running all the numbers, and if they're good at what they do, then they in most of the scenarios still make the right choice for the long term, right? But that will still be within that box. That is what is, I think, is critical thinking. There's nothing wrong. Like critical thinking is an important life skill, right? That we need to be able to do good in any situation. We need to think. We need to break it down critically, and think about it, and then make a choice. But what I would say independent thinking is the ability to like just step out of the box, and look at everything else that is possible, and and then like and look at the other choices, like a million other choices that are outside of the 5 choices that you are being given within the box. There are like a million other choices that you can just grab on and make for yourself, right? And I think that that ability is what I will call independent. So you're not dependent on the box anymore, right? You're independent of the box. The box is giving you the box has its gods, and it has its own world, and it has its citizens, and everything, right? And every citizen in the box is trying to make the same choices, and there's a pyramid probably in the box as well, right? Where you have been given the choices that you're being given, and I would say independent thinking is your ability to step out of that box and look that there are 100 other boxes out there, and there are like choices even outside all of those boxes. And you're not dependent on this system that you're part of right now to make a living, to make a life. But how do you my problem or my desire is helping people, like first, do they need this? Like I need to clear that in my head right now, right? Do they need to step out of the box, and do they need to start and when it comes to critical thinking, every choice that they get out of the box still needs to go through their process, right? They still needs to run the numbers. They need to still analyze that what is right, what is wrong, and then like move on from there, and make those choices. But I have strong beliefs that they'll live a better life if they stepped out of the box and were more independent in the way they make their choices. I don't know whether that's right for everyone or not. Right? Maybe some people do need the box just to like make sense of the world. So yeah, I'm yeah, but I have a strong feeling that most people would find stepping out of the box more useful. I think. What do you think? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, I think the example of the box is helpful. I want to ask a couple of questions to make sure I understand the example and then extend it in ways that is useful. So when you think about the box, are the choices, at least the way you started, are the choices in the box all about the career or work of the software engineer that you think, or does it also have spouse and kids and health? And like, is the box a career box, or is the box a life box? And one of the thing is career.
Yeah. So you can be in. So it can go down and you can get as narrow as you can, right? The box can be as small and you can be in multiple boxes at the same time, and there can be like there's like a big life box that we're in, and then within it there are like there's like a career box, and there's like a relationship box, and there's like a money box, and there's a health box. And let's say somebody runs a gym and they're a fitness trainer, they're very good in the health box, right? But they're not stepping out at that small box and looking at their finance and their relationship and everything else, right? And they are like living in a I think that's how it like. So there is life that exists within those other boxes as well, but are they able to like first like transfer the skills from one box to the other, and also realize that they're only making choices that I think that is like the bigger point, that we are like our choices are bounded, right? We are all only making the choices that the gods in the box are throwing at us.
And who are the gods in the box?
So it's context, it's society, it's
okay.
It's a parents, it's what we see other people do, right? So in Atomic Habits, like James Clear says that there's like only three kinds of people we emulate, right? The famous, or the many, or the closest ones, right? So it's like either we emulate Hollywood stars and we want to do what they do, or it's we emulate the crowds, what the millions are doing, right? And the third one is that it's the closest ones, the people just around us, what they are doing, we do them, right? It's like mimetic desire, and there's a whole theory around it, of mimesis. But basically, that's what we end up doing, right? Trying to emulate these kinds of people, but are a bill, and these I would call are like the gods who are like giving us choices, right? The fact that our choices that are falling into these are falling into our life are the ability to look at who is giving that choice to us, and there is an entire world outside, right? Where we can have like a million more choices. I don't think most people realize that. Does it make more clear, or is more confusing?
It helps in some, confusing in some others. So
yeah.
Perhaps a simplification would be that your box of life contains everything. So there is no going outside the life box, I'm guessing.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, sure.
And you have one box, let's say career, in your example, software career, and through the schooling system or through the years, you have been prepared and you know how to think critically to make good choices if the schooling part went well. And you're good in those things. There are other boxes inside the life box that you have not really been taught of. So the life skill that you have of critical thinking is so specific that it applies only to your career box and only a one type of career. Part one of the situation we are dealing with is that this person who is educated and has critical thinking in one type of career is not able to bring out the abstraction of the critical thinking and apply it to their health box or to their finance box in most cases. So that is part one of the problem. And it's not like that the other boxes don't exist. And in these boxes, there are gods. And for the sake of simplicity, let's just call it there are templates and go with what the James Clear mimetic example is the templates could be coming from famous people or from Charlo, which is like most people around you generally do this thing. And or somebody who's right, and someone who's really close to you. So my mom did it this way, my dad did it this way, or my mentor did it this way, right? So there are so instead of just calling God, let's just say there are templates that are handed to you. inside the box, and you do them. So for a second, just forget about the big life box. Let's just talk about these individual boxes. So what happens? So now just to even understand what you mean by independent thinking, because it is still unclear to me, what is the independence from? Is it the independent thinking, according to you, is independent of the box you are in, whether your career, health, finance, or is it independent of the template that is given to you? Like, what is the independence, or is it something different?
Both.
What is the independence?
It's both. I think it's both, and that's why it's a bit confusing. Because you need both these skills. First is the ability to apply critical thinking across across boxes, across your different situations in life. So if I know how to run the numbers at my job and do like more complex financial modeling there, then I should be able to do that for my own personal finance as well. Right, or if I know how to write really good code, really logical, well thought out software, then I should be able to make similar well thought out decisions and like design the code of my life as well, right, where my relationships and my health is also like nicely designed and programmed, right? So that's first part, that we learn critical thinking in a very narrow area and we don't apply it across. And the second part is that we don't have the ability to step out of the box entirely and say that if I've been taught coding and I don't but I'm not good at it, or I'm good at it but I still don't want to do this, or I've done it for 10 years, I want to move on and try other things, then the ability to step out of that box and move from coding to architecture, or from architecture to design, or from design to accounting, right? The ability to think independently of that box and say there's a whole world out there, and we're not doing that. Right. So that is like the second thing that's important. Or even in like political situations, right? This happens all the time. The left and the right are always fighting, and they don't realize that only what their gods or the templates that they have been given, those are the only opinions that they can have. Like somebody saying that A is good and B is bad, right? And the left says that A is good and the right says that B is good. But both of them don't realize that probably there's an option like C or D, which even exist in the world, right? They're not able to step out of those boxes that they have been enshrined, they have been, brought into during their early days, during formative years. Right? And that's why I think the education system can play such an important role, because all of these foundations to our choices, all of these boxes are created during the first 20 years of our life, first 20, 25 years of our life, when we are going through the schooling system and the entire education system, right? And the mental maps, or the mental what do you call the mental models that we create during these formative years end up like defining the direction of our life almost. So yeah, that's how I think about it.
Okay, so let me
both. Yeah.
Let me push on this a little more, because I don't think it is still clear to me.
Okay.
When you compared, you said that kids when they're young they have independent thinking.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they go through the schooling, they get these boxes, and they also get some critical thinking in one of the boxes.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that an independent thinking adult would be able to apply critical thinking that they have developed in one box in the other boxes, as well as not adhere to the templates that are given to them in one of the boxes. My question then becomes, there is something that is missing in the connection, and this is purely coming from, so I'm not trying to tell what I think independent thinking is, I'm trying to still understand what you think it is. And because unless we understand what independent thinking, according to both of us is, and how do we even get something that we don't know what we're really getting about, right? So if a young kid is independent thinking, you give them these boxes, forget education system, just your kid now, you give them the boxes, what will he do, right? Like if he's exercising his independent thinking, will it look like he'll be able to transfer from one box to the other, or he'll be able to be like, I don't care about the templates? So
he'll probably go inside one box and look at the templates and look at the choices that he's given, and he'll try them out, and he'll not forget that this is a box. This is not the entire world. Is my like core thing that I'm saying. So he'll step into the box, and he'll try out everything. He'll test out. If he likes it, he'll stay in the box. At some point, he'll be like, sure, let me just step out and try another box. And he'll come out, and then he'll try another box, and then he'll step out.
Let me stop you there. Yeah. There is one thing that has been confused here. As an adult, you don't have the choice to try one box and try the other box. You have the way we've defined boxes. All the boxes are going to be implemented in some way or the form, right? You cannot have, I don't want to try relationships at this point because I'm trying something else, health and fitness now, right? So even if your kid is sort of like jumping from one box to the other, what is happening?
No. So that's what, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So we can go as narrow as we want, right? So within the work box, there are like 10 different areas that you can go into, right? 10 different tracks.
So you can let's not.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
So let's not confuse the terminology. At this point, let the box be assigned. The word box be assigned only to one of the aspects of life, like career or relationship or finance, right? So within that, if there are specific things, let's just call them something else. That's why I said like.
That's why I said tracks. Let's say tracks.
Let's say tracks. And what does a template mean within a box? So the gods have given you a template, or society or famous person or whatever. A template
let's say society has said. Let's say for relationship to society has the gods have given you the template of get married at 30 and become a parent by 35 and have a second kid by 38 and the likes, right? In your relation, and you should live with your family, and every society has different, like, should live with your family, don't live with the family, and every template is different. Do you have the ability to say that no, I'm not going to get married at 30, I'm going to get married at 25, or I'm going to get married at 40, or I'm never going to get married, right? And it's okay. Or if you're married, then I'm never going to have kids, or I'm going to have kids late, or I'm going to have kids early, right? Just breaking off from those templates and trying different tracks within a particular box. Do we have the ability to do that? How many of us have the ability to do that? Right? And the same thing applies to work. The same thing applies to money. Same thing applies to everything in every box.
So is your are you like, no, not assumption, like, are you claiming that most people don't make those choices, or are you claiming that most people cannot make those choices? So like they understand the choices, but they cannot make it. Are you saying that they don't even know that there are choices? So forget about.
I don't think they.
What is it that you're claiming?
I don't think they realize that they have choices. It depends. I don't think they realize that they have choices in any box.
Why do you think so?
I don't think people. Because the templates that have been given have been so deeply ingrained in their minds, right from the beginning, that breaking off from those templates and trying out different templates, or even thinking beyond the templates becomes it's almost impossible. It's like you're so close to something that becomes your entire world. Right, and you're not able to and I've spoken to people for just to give like a very extreme example, like there, I know people. I know a woman who suffers from domestic abuse. Her husband doesn't work. Her children are, in a problematic space, and we talk to her and we tell her that you should move on from this man, and it's okay to get a divorce, or it's okay to separate from this person and live a life. And she's like, no, I cannot do that. That's just it's just not possible for me. So probably that means that even when somebody's telling you that there is a choice, right, you're not able to make that choice, and for this example, right?
So I am not hearing this example the same way that you are telling me. So
so she has been given the template of being the ideal Indian wife, that she's just following step by step. It's just to support her husband no matter what, and to take care of her children no matter what, and like save the marriage, or be in the marriage, struggle in the marriage for the children, right? That's what we have been told all the time, that you can live, that you should, for the sake of the children, you should do everything you can to, and suffer and sacrifice your life, and stay in the marriage, because having a family, having a father to the children is very important, right? But there is an entire world outside where she could live on her own and make a living on her own, and like take care of her children and give them a great life on her own, if we just had the ability to break off the template, and try another template or try another track, right? And that's just beyond her thinking.
Maybe there are a few things here that, and I'm not judging your advice here, but
yeah.
Okay, let's break down the situation and understand. One, I think she's aware of the other choice instead of not aware of it. What you are saying that
she says that I'll not be able to do this.
Right. So not being able to do something versus not being aware that that is a choice are two different things. So I don't even know that this the A, B, and C exists. I don't even know C exists. Is not being aware of the choice. Knowing that C exists, but there is something stopping me from making choice C, is not being aware of it. It is more of what is the cost benefit analysis, or is the trade-off, or what is the emotional, as a full person, whatever you're going through, you're making some choice based on some, in this case, your interpretation being that the template of society is so strong in her that she's not able to make that choice. But that does not mean that she's not aware of that choice. It's simply that the cost analysis from her perspective could simply be it is against my principles. And so I think making the distinction between she's aware of the choice versus
she wants to do it, but she's just not confident enough.
Right.
She wants to do it.
And now
she doesn't think that she can pull it off. Yeah.
Right. So now I'll come to the next piece. And this is what I'm saying. There are a whole bunch of things that I'm not sure I completely understand. Because you saying that there is this world out there where you can be successful in so many different ways. What I'm hearing, and perhaps what she's hearing, is how can I be sure? Right? So like, if I'm not successful, how can I be sure that I should take this? Like, so I'm not claiming that you can pre-know the outcome of your choices. I'm not claiming that.
You never know. But when you got into this marriage, you have no way of knowing it's going to be good or bad.
Absolutely. So I'm not suggesting that. Coming to closer to the part one, I'm not trying to figure out what is the right answer for her. What I'm trying to bring it closer to is our discussion and my understanding of what you think independent thinking here is. From the perspective of that woman, she's still not engaging in independent thinking, because one option is what I'm already doing, and the other option is that what you're telling me to do. right? She's not thought about it. So I'm trying to understand, when you mean independent thinking,
totally see.
Is it beyond the
yes,
template?
Yes, beyond. Yes.
Or
yes,
is it
for her example, for her context? I totally think she should do all, like she should like step back and look at all her options that she has on her own.
So like that is where I want to now push more and more bluntly here. Is that
sure.
You telling you should do this and you can be successful this way is precisely the opposite of helping her be independently thinking.
I agree.
Right.
And now, if she was able to make that choice, then I would not need to exist. I would not need to give my advice.
Right. But like, I'm still not able to, I think, match up with the understanding of, are you promoting independent thinking in her, or are you telling her what to do?
No. So no. So my example came not in the sense that I am telling her what she needs to do and she's not doing that. No, my example was that she should be able to come up with those choices herself and then make those choices herself. That's what I meant. I'm not saying she should do what I'm saying.
So here's a question. You told her about this option. She also knows this option, but she's not able to come to the conclusion that I should pursue that other choice. The question that I'm asking is not whether this is right or this is right. The question I'm asking is she, how do you know that she's not engaging in independent thinking? Is it purely based on because she's not making this non-templatic choice, or is it based on something else?
No, because she thinks that there is only one way to do this. There's only one way to do this, right? And while there are 100, and that one way is not for her. Like there's only one way to get separated and live on your own. While there are like there are 100 ways to do it, which she can only know once she like takes a step back and actually like thinks broadly about the next 40-50 years that she's going to live this life, and how can I think beyond this.
Okay, so let me rephrase that question. From her perspective, there is only two choices, not within the domain of those two choices, what are the different things that can happen. One choice is continue, other choice is leave. Right?
Yes.
Inside the leave, there can be 1,500 ways that you are saying, if she thinks broadly, she can figure it out. But she's not thinking about the 1,500 ways. At this point, she's making, in your decision paradigm,
and
she's here or here.
And she's not able to make this because out of the 1,500, she only knows one way and she thinks she'll not be able to do it.
No, is that your analysis or is that her analysis?
It's her analysis that I cannot do this.
Okay. So now let me ask a different question.
Yeah.
Irrespective of so let's step out of that example and make a sort of template of the example to ask the real question, right? So a person is at a decision criteria, and the options that they have, they can go down option 1 or they can go down option 2. Okay.
Yeah.
You can think about option 2 a lot because this now is a decision tree. You can make many decisions going in, but the first branch is here and there are multiple branches. You might think that one of the branch, after making 15 decisions down the road, is not possible. But what you are claiming in this case is, no, but there are other branches that one of them might be, possible. Now, I'm not disputing that kind of a distinction here. What I'm asking is, let's say this person thinks about something here and comes to the conclusion that I'll stick with A. Okay, so they've made the choice of sticking with A. How do you know, or how do you attribute whether this person has engaged in independent thinking or not? So here's now the distinction. Option 1 looks like the template path, and option 2 looks like the non-template path. Somebody choosing to go down the template path, is it by default that because of the option they chose, are you reflecting back and saying on them, this is reflective of them not being independent thinking? Or is there something different that you're saying is
they want a different life? They're not happy with the choice that they have.
Okay.
Right? They want a different life. I think that is a fundamental issue here, that it's not like she has made the choice. Right? That is what I'm getting at. Like, she was thrust into this choice 15 years ago when she got married.
Okay.
Right. And then she's just living this because she's been told all her life that this is what she needs to do. Right? Getting married at 17 and being at at 34, 35, realizing that this is not the life that I wanted, but now I have to keep living it because I have no other choices.
No, so there can be more choices inside, just the way here there are multiple choices. Even on this side there could be multiple choices, right? But this entire branch of option 1 is the traditional branch, and this entire branch of option 2 is the non-traditional or break the template branch. So thinking of options in this, and again I want to slowly separate out of the example to the abstraction of being able to say what is critical versus what is independent thinking, right? My goal is not to solve that problem. My goal is for us to be able to solve and understand what is the distinction so that we can get better at it, right? So one way of thinking, and let me come out and say it, so like I'm nudging to better understand, but I don't want to put words in your mouth also, is one way of critical thinking, if I've understood the way you're saying, is look at this option 2 outside of this template option, and in here there are multiple directions that your life can take, and a good critical thinking person will be able to generate many of these options on this other side, right? Many nodes or many branches. And if I'm assuming that is critical thinking, then that critical thinking person also generate many branches on this side. This side. So they don't need to, like, breaking of the template does not mean you're breaking of the template right at the root node. You can be in the template for some choices and then, break off in some other choices. And if you are critical thinking, I suppose you will be able to generate many more options here also on this side, on the template side, and like lesser degree of breaking.
I think I think how I think about it, an independent thinking person will be able to branch out and think of different branches, and a critical thinking person would actually will be able to figure out how to implement each choice effectively. I think that's where we differ in our opinion. That an independent thinking person is not a dependent thinking person is not able to generate the choices themselves. They're not able to think beyond the template that they've been given in this branch and a single node. They're not able to think beyond different branches and different nodes. They're not able to generate those choices. A critical thinking person would be, once they have generated those choices, they would be able to decide that which choice is the best for me in this scenario, and how can I go and actually implement this choice and to make the best life for myself.
Okay, so coming back to this branch example, what you're saying is, even on this offbeat path, there might be a whole bunch of different branches that can be created, but a critical thinking person cannot create those branches.
No, so I think the action of creating branches is an act of independent thinking. The ability to say that this is not the only node that exists in this world, this is not the only branch that exists in this world, and taking a step back and looking at the whole scenario and looking at the entire canvas of choices that's available, and then drawing that tree for yourself. That in itself is an act of independent thinking, and then figuring out that what exactly happens in each node. That if I want to find success, let's say as a teacher, or if in that context, right, this is a housewife, you can easily become a teacher, so you can easily join an educational institute, you can easily become a secretary or do a clerical job.
You're generating options here. Is that independent thinking or is it critical thinking? Like, I'm really pushing hard.
The ability to generate, even think of all the options that are available, is independent thinking. The ability to going and inside and going deep down and figuring out, okay, I want to be a teacher. These are the 10 steps that I take to become a teacher. That is critical thinking.
I see. Okay. So
that's how I think about it. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So if I can add and sort of like push on that analogy to make it much more clearer,
sure.
The ability to generate the tree or new branches in the tree is independent thinking, right?
Yes.
Different branches is independent thinking. The ability to evaluate accurately going down which branch is going to be how useful or successful is critical thinking, right?
And the next step, that how do I actually do this? Right? What is the work required to make that choice, or what are the consequences of each choice? Of each node is a choice, effectively, right?
Right. So this is where So
if templates society gives us one node and one only it gives us just a one node. The ability to generate the entire tree from that one node is independent thinking, I would say.
Okay. And because going down the path of each node, because each node is a choice, going down the path of each node involves two things, which are both wrestling with some sort of uncertainty. One is, how do we go down the each node? And second is, if we do this, what would it look like? Like, what is the success that I can achieve? Right. So for that lady that you are thinking, she understands this path that you're telling her about, the specific path. And her evaluation of that path is that she'll not be successful. Right. So if her evaluation is that she'll not be successful in that path, the one that you are laying out for her, then there's no reason for her to go down that path. Right.
Yeah. So I'm not saying listen to me. What I'm saying is that generate those nodes for yourself.
Right.
Right. That she's unable to do, and wherever she is in her life, she's stuck and she doesn't want to be there.
Absolutely. So again, breaking from the example.
Yeah. Okay.
The ability to generate new paths or new decision choices, like add a node and then create a branch there, is independent thinking. And the ability to evaluate how you would go down those paths and what success would look like, which is, and by evaluate, I mean by reducing the uncertainty around, what life would look like after those many number of, and the uncertainty, the deeper you think, go down the nodes, the more the uncertainty is, right? And if it is a completely new path, the uncertainty is higher even at the first few nodes, right? So critical thinking could be my ability to evaluate the path. Independent thinking would be my ability to generate a path, completely new path. Right? And in some sense, at the edges, independent and critical thinking would have to interact with each other.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So now simplifying this, we've tried to understand what independent is and what critical is. Let's say that these are two sort of like orthogonal, which is two separate competencies. One is independent thinking, the other is critical thinking. When we are kids, we have a lot of independent thinking. Do we also have a lot of critical thinking?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So when we are born, we are born on this end. We have a lot of independent thinking. Okay. And we want a lot of critical thinking to come in. Because to be successful in life, you need both capacities. One is generate options, other is evaluate options accurately. Right? Now, it doesn't matter which box or which aspect of life you're applying this method to. In any box,
it's a 2D graph basically.
In any box, you should be able to generate options and you should be able to evaluate options. Absolutely no point, just like in kids, where you can generate a lot of options, but you're so bad at evaluating that you end up choosing the bad option and you hurt yourself. Or hurt others, or mess things up, right? Or break things.
Right.
And we are sort of set ourselves up to say that there's no point in being an adult who's so high on critical thinking, but absolutely loses on independent thinking. That you are a pedantic expert on a specific thing, but you messed up your entire life because you're frustrated, you're bound in only a single set of things, and still you're not succeeding, right? So that would be on this end. What you would ideally want is somebody who's on this end, like such a nice 2D graph in which you always want to be on the top right.
Yes. The slope at 45 degrees.
Right. So what you would want is that you have high degrees of independent, critical thinking, such that you're able to reduce the uncertainty, you're able to make the good choices and all of those things.
Yes.
With it, you also want the ability to generate choices that are beyond what is given to you through templates. So now this makes sense. And bringing it right back to the first thing where you started, what you're saying is that kids, students, humans are put into the schooling or education system broadly because of parents and everything, and their profile looks like they're sitting here on this 2D map. And over the years, instead of going here, they go here. Right? So they are gaining this at the expense of independence. They're gaining critical thinking at the expense of independence. Okay.
Yes.
And there was a
perfect. That sounds perfect. Yes.
And there was a third thing that we had discussed, which was that even this critical thinking that comes is only specific to one domain. And I want to briefly touch on this. Is it fair to say that this kind of a graph exists for each of the box, each of the domains?
It becomes like a 3D graph with a z-axis.
Right, with the z-axis, and on this axis are all the different domains.
Yes.
And now the problem is even more amplified, because what you would ideally want is your humans to be on the top right on all the domains. And they have high critical thinking, but even that high critical thinking is only in one domain, and it does not easily transfer into other domains. Is that meaningfully accurate?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Do you think that the independent thinking that they have at the childhood, so I'm now guessing this in the 3D graph, the independent thinking applies to all domains? It is not that they have independent thinking in only one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Or is it more accurate to say that they don't even know what the domains are?
Yeah. At this point, they don't even know what the domains are. But whatever domain they're given, right?
They'll think independent
by the system, by the education system, by the three gods, right? Within those domains, they can, right.
Okay. So now it is useful to ask that, or rather specify here, that we think that independent thinking is a domain independent competency.
Yes.
Or
of course.
That if you have independent thinking, you're very likely to have it across all things. At least the example we're talking about from the kids' perspective. And we could be wrong there. In adults, it could still be just like critical thinking, that you have extremely high independent thinking, but it only applies in your work domain. Do you think that is possible? Or do you think if somebody has independent thinking, they'll have independent? It is just infinitely transferable, or obviously transferable, not like critical thinking where it doesn't transfer easily.
No, so I don't have any evidence to either to take any stance on that. That if somebody is very independent, able to think very independently in a domain, can they transfer it? Because I haven't
So do you consider yourself an independent thinker?
That's a big question. I would love to think that way, but I still know, right? This is where it comes back to bounded choices, right? That I still know that I'm only making the choices that are being given to me, right? And I need to be constantly aware of this, that the options, even the independent options that I'm able to generate for myself, are within a certain context, within a certain canvas only. And do I need to step outside of this box? Do I need to step out of this canvas and look at the other choices, or I'm happy being where I am right now? And that's where I think it comes about. That's what it comes down to, right? Is the life that you're living the most full life that you want to live or not. If you feel there's something missing, maybe you need to take that as a signal to step outside of the box and look at the other choices that you could be generating. I think we can use that as a heuristic to see that's when we need independent thinking.
Okay, so the ability to,
we're not satisfied with the life that we're living.
So now let me push, and because this will help us
it's still complex, but yeah, please. Yeah.
The ability to ask that question of am I satisfied with my life, and which should prompt according to you. This is just like a air conditioner or thermostat, right? In which at some point it flips to you. That is the question that you're asking, and then you are like, now deploy independent thinking, right? That's what I'm hearing here. So I'm not going in either the independent or the critical thinking direction. I'm asking the question of the ability to ask that question. What is that skill? Is it independent, critical? Is it some third?
You're critically analyzing your life. You're critically analyzing your happiness level, your contentment, your. But it's not independent thinking. I know that most people don't even do this because that's another, like the life box. Like they don't bring out the critical thinking skills to the life box.
Mm-hmm.
They keep it in their narrow area of field.
Mm-hmm.
So
then what is the problem? Because here's the question that I'm asking.
I know.
If somebody is not analyzing and they don't come to the conclusion that, oh, this is not good enough, then why do they need? And if the only
because they're not happy living the life they're living, right?
Okay.
They have this at the back of their mind. They're dissatisfied with the situation they are in.
Mm-hmm. But that's the exact trigger, right? Or is that not the trigger?
That's the trigger. But an independent thinking person at that trigger would say, okay, let's analyze broader choices. Let's try to generate some options about how can I change this. While a dependent thinking person will say, I'm frustrated, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. I guess this is just how life is. Life happens, shit happens, all that kind of stuff. And I just have to power through this and just live. The life is miserable. Like that's why we get those kinds of people. Who just think that they've been given a bad hand in life and they complain about it, but they never actually do anything about it.
Okay, so let me bring in another idea, and this is so I'm definitely not the one who thought of this idea. Many people have thought, but from a sort of like research perspective, Herb Simon was the first one to talk about this systematically, and it is the idea of bounded rationality. And what it says is it's a very intuitive idea, and it was needed at the time because of how economics used to think about humans. But the reason this is applicable here is, so bounded rationality, it is the idea that humans cannot be infinitely rational. Okay, we cannot reason about all the situations, all the tree branches, and it's not about independent thinking. It is about, if you can be infinitely independently thinking, you can generate infinite options. And if it can be infinitely critical thinking, you can evaluate infinite options. And the rational thing would be to generate and evaluate infinite options and pick the best one. The bounded rationality argument says that we have limited capacity, right? Attention, memory. So this is where my research comes in. So I'll not go down there, but the idea of it is coupled with the idea of satisficing. So instead of optimizing is the idea that you generate all the options, critically evaluate all the options, and come up with the optimal solution. As an engineering approach, most engineers tend to think about life as decision-making and optimized decision-making. So this is a very deeply rooted mental model that happens when you transfer your critical thinking that you've developed in engineering or type of sciences to life. That we have to make optimal choices. The idea of bounded rationality, if you deeply understand, is a very human idea that you cannot do it, right? And so we might know that we cannot do it, but versus we actually understand the consequences of it are two different things, right? So what it means is when you cannot do it, you satisfice. And what satisfice simply saying is from optimization is you have a secondary cost attached to how much should I explore, right? At what point more exploration or more analysis is not worth it. So I don't try to do that. I'll generate 5,000 options and then I'll run my critical algorithm on all of them, and then I'll sort through them and pick the best one. I don't do that. I generate an option, I evaluate it. I generate second option, I evaluate it, compare it to the previous one. I generate a third option, evaluate it, compare it to the previous two. In fact, all the options I'm generating are also dependent on the previous options that I have generated, right? So what that does is it stops me from deploying infinite resources, which I don't have, and using only finite resources to generate strategically some options and then be done with it. So at some point I say that, okay, this is it. Of the four things, this is the best option that I have. Let me just take it and move on, right? Because there's a cost to not actually acting on them. You cannot, right? Because you're also spending time in the generation and analysis.
Opportunity cost.
Right? There's an opportunity cost. So that cost comes down and hence the satisficing, right? You are not choosing the optimal path. You're choosing the satisfactory path. Given this applied to what you are saying, might I argue and say that a person who gets frustrated, they at that point in your world should apply independent thinking. Maybe they're not applying independent thinking because they're cognitively exhausted. So the question is, maybe they have the capacity to do independent thinking. I'm not saying that is true. I'm saying that if you're trying to understand the problem, maybe schooling has not beaten independent thinking out of you. But schooling or work or all of these things have put enough cognitive load on you that you don't think that independent thinking is part of the satisfactory solution. It is too much work.
I partly agree. I agree. I understand the logic. But then my question becomes that what can the education system do for people to recognize even that? Right? That you can always go one step above and right. That I am like too cognitively challenged to think clearly right now, and shouldn't society or the education system prepare you to handle those kinds of situations as well?
So those are two separate questions, right? So the part one is recognizing that I'm cognitively full.
I would still put that in the independent thinking bucket. That the ability to recognize that you are you're cognitively challenged to think clearly right now and to make good decisions, and then taking a step back and realizing what you should be doing, that how can you get out of the situation is also independent thinking, I would say.
And do you and are you claiming that people don't have that? Or are you claiming that people have
that? It's like the kids thing, right? That at the back of the mind, you have somewhere in your system you have that, but you because you had that when you were very young.
No. I don't want you to sort of sidestep the question. As a kid, you had it, no doubt. That's where we started.
Yeah.
We just said that on this graph, as an adult, you moved here. Okay.
Yes.
But with the idea of bounded rationality, we also opened up the possibility that actually you didn't move here. You moved here. It's just that you're not exercising independent thinking because you don't think it is worth it. So the question that I'm asking is not whether we had independent thinking. The question that I'm asking is, do you think that people are like, you started out with that people lose their independent thinking. I'm asking the question is, do people lose independent thinking, or do they come to the conclusion through the schooling system that independent thinking is not worth it?
No, I don't think they ever come to the conclusion that independent thinking is not worth it. They just don't exercise it. They just don't apply it in their life.
Okay, so then a good question to ask is why, and the why answer, the answer for the why, it needs to be in one of two directions, or maybe a third direction, but it needs to have that level of clarity. Is that they don't apply it because, again, coming back, their critical thinking that the kids did not have and they have now is leading them to make the choice that it's not worth it. Now I can critically analyze all the parts, and I have looked at that one step on the independent thinking side, and I'm like, the amount of ambiguity and uncertainty there is so high, and my critical analysis is telling me it's not worth it, right? So they have exercised their independent
it's
thinking.
Not a critical
and
analysis.
They have
it's yeah.
Okay, so
it's not a critical analysis. It's the template that you've been given, and saying no to everything else is part of the template. That this is the template that you get, and there is no way out of this, and this is the only way you can live life. Is what we've been told at every step by every guru, by every god that comes in our way. And once we start following a template, we know that it's not possible for us to even think of anything else. That's not part of critical thinking. That's just part of the template that we're doing. I am an employee. I can never be an entrepreneur.
So it is unclear. I'm still unclear.
It's not a critically thought out decision. Just though it's just that the odds against that decision have been stacked so high that you never try to even think critically about it. That is what I would call independent thinking, right?
Okay, again, we don't want to go in circles, and that is what I'm trying to understand. Where are we going in circles? Because it is an infinite circle to say that, oh, I critically analyzed it and it is not worth going there, and you're saying that then it is not independent thinking. I'm like, no, right? So we are playing cat and mouse on both sides. If I choose because of critical thinking, then I'm not doing independent thinking, and you are saying that no, that then it is not independent thinking. You have to choose which of the thinking process is breaking, right? I'm saying that the independent thinking process gets broken.
The first step, the critical thinking process breaks. First step, the critical thinking process breaks. Where they only apply critical thinking in one area of life, and they don't apply it to another area of life. If they are good at their work, but they're not happy, they don't try to think critically about why they are not happy. Right? They think that every other choice of being, there is only one template to being happy, is like buying more stuff, and but even that, buying more material possession doesn't make them happy. They don't know what to do. Right? And they feel stuck, and they don't analyze that there are other options as well. The other ways of being happy, which are more effective, probably, right?
So then
how would you? What would you call that? I don't know what to call that. Critical or independent?
I think so. So the place where I want to, so that it is actually helpful, right? Rather than going in circles, is being able to pinpoint what is broken, like where is this getting broken. So very clearly we've said that independent and critical thinking actually go hand in hand. They reinforce each other.
Yes.
Right? But if either of them is inadequately applied, you can come to a suboptimal solution and be stuck in one corner of the world.
Yes.
And my question is it that the independent thinking is broken, that you're not generating an option that is good enough? Or is it the critical thinking that is broken, which is your analysis that going down the path of generating new options is not worth it, is broken? So is it your critical thinking about life?
No. So I'll just say people don't do the exercise of generating options because the template that has been given to them, they feel that it's just not possible to look at other options.
Right. And this is where we are back in that loop, right? So
Yes.
If you tell me that people are not generating enough options, I can not be sure, and at least in my experience when I've spoken to people, I have come to the conclusion where the reason people are not generating options is not because they cannot generate options. It is because they've critically evaluated that even the exercise of generating options is futile. It's just so filled with so much uncertainty and so much unknowingness. And the template here has so much more data that I have more certainty on where it will get me. So,
but this is not, but I'm not happy. This is not the life I want to live.
And that's what, so this is what satisficing is, right? Satisficing is not trying to get at maximum happiness. Satisficing is trying to pick the most happy outcome. Right? So the main limitation of bounded rationality is basically saying that you're not trying to search in a field of hyper rational, complete, maximize your thing. Right? It is trying to go in the place of, amongst the options that I have, which one is the best option? And generating more options, I can do it, but that also adds some cost. And if I generate one option, which on the face of it seems like I leave my job and start a company, and on the face of it, it's like the probability of success there is really low, then generating more options of that kind, given from you, coming from your satisficing perspective, is a futile process. So then you cut down
broader options. Yeah.
Right. So the place where the place both of us agree, and I think most of everybody who's listening will agree, is that people find themselves in such gridlocks of I am not exactly happy with my position, but I also don't know what exactly to do next. And doing that seems just ultra crazy, or doing this seems just beyond it. And we go in that mental loop a few times, and then we are exhausted, and then we just come to the conclusion of, let's keep doing, this is what life is. Let's what we have is reasonably good, let's continue doing that.
But they're still unhappy, and my question is, shouldn't the education system or society do something about it to help them live a more full life?
So that is a big leap. That's what I'm saying. Like, unless you understand the problem.
No, because I understand that we're running in circles here.
I don't think the education system or the society should do something.
So it's all the responsibility of the person themselves.
No, it is the responsibility.
That's just how.
It is the responsibility of the education system and the society to build you up in a certain way, but it is not the job of the education system or the society to solve your problems.
But at least they should give you the tools to solve your problems.
Yes, I'm agreeing to that, and we both agree to that. And in order to give you the tools, we need to first understand which is the tool that is missing. And that is where it comes back to, rather, it is a cop-out to jump at this point to, shouldn't the education system...
No, because I understand what you're saying. No, I understand you're saying, and there's no way out of this.
No, there is a way out of this. And that's what I'm trying to push towards. Unless you and I are not able to put a finger on, this is the problem. How do we anticipate that whatever is society?
I don't think people generate one extra option in their life.
And I'm saying that's because they don't think it is worth it.
Because the education system has told them that this is the only option you get to live.
Okay.
That's my problem.
Why do you think that they've accepted it?
Because that's the template that they've been given. And when you're groomed over a single template for 20 years, how can you think beyond it?
Well, we just discussed that, like, you can think beyond it. Most people are, and forget the education system, by the virtue of you people. So, like, you gave that lady that you were talking to, you gave her the new option, right? So even when the new option was thrust on her,
it's not a threat. It was a choice.
Right.
It wasn't as strongly ingrained in her the way the first template was ingrained.
That is what I'm trying to push towards, right? It is not that the generation of the new choices was missing. If I cannot generate it, ideally I should be able to generate it, right? But if I have enough,
the education system should give you the confidence that because nothing is black and white, nothing is 100%. There is no certainty in life.
Right.
Even the template that you're living with is not going to give you, even when you're satisficing for in the moment. You don't know what is going to happen tomorrow.
And that is why people are okay making that. And I'm saying that most people understand that. And that is why they're okay making the choice of, this is not the best term. I'm not very happy. I'm not completely happy, but it is okay, because that is what so what I'm saying is all the things that you're pushing for, I don't think any of those things are missing so far from most people. Most people understand life is uncertain. Most people understand that the templated path is not the best path. Most people also understand the place where you are saying that, oh, they don't, only if they had more independent thinking. I'm saying, let's say very clearly our current system failed and most people by themselves don't have enough independent thinking. I'm saying, but by the virtue of you talking to other people, you're still able to generate other options. Right? So
sure.
Independent thinking is now a social.
It's the confidence that they lack, that they can go beyond and step out of the box. How do we give that confidence?
Great. So the question
you think they don't need that confidence?
No. Why are they missing that confidence?
Because the current template has stacked the odds against, has only given them the tools to act in a certain way. And the moment they step into an uncertain situation and an uncertain template, they feel underconfident and they don't think that they'll be able to pull off. While in reality, if they acted like a child again and did the whole going up the graph again, and
I don't think it is acting like a child. I would say okay. So all right, it is acting like a child. So this is great, because what does acting like a child mean? Let's go in our graph. What does acting like a child mean?
Acting like a child means that starting from zero on a topic and saying that I'm going to learn the shit out of this and go top and become like a critical thinker in this area.
Yes. What are they missing?
Yeah.
What is a child missing? They're here on the independent thinking part, and they're missing the critical thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And you're telling me that only if the person behaved like a child, they would be able to not have the confidence problem and go forward.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
If both of these ideas are actually meaningfully there, then the thing that is missing is not independent thinking.
Yeah.
The thing that is missing is critical thinking. So their critical thinking is set up such that it is self-sabotaging. So,
and that's why they need independent thinking to think beyond that, right?
Okay. All right. So in our current paradigm, and this is what I'm saying, like I always have to mentally change to how you think, how you define independent thinking and how I define independent thinking. Right. So
how do you define independent thinking? I want to know. You should that is how we should have started the episode. How do you define independent thinking?
It is perfect. It is very close to what you're saying only, but the way in this conversation we've been talking about independent thinking is the ability to generate more options, right?
Yeah. Right.
And we are saying that critical thinking is built up over time, which is the ability to evaluate the options and then make a choice. Both how to and the how to and the ability to execute comes from if the direction seems fruitful to
me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that context, it doesn't matter if you're stuck in such a loop, right? It doesn't matter where the independent thinking comes from. As long as I have more other options that have been generated for me, then, and my claim is that I have really good critical thinking, then I should be able to break out of the loop. But both of our experience is that we are still not able to break out of the loop. Your claim is that is because you're missing independent thinking. I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing that you're missing independent thinking. It is not broad enough that you can generate so many more options. My point is, even when we have substituted personal independent thinking with social independent thinking, that we have generated the options. And in your situation, I have generated the option for you, or you have generated the option for that lady, right? Even then, you are not able to break out of it.
Okay.
Your claim is that is because of independent thinking. Only if they could think more. What I am essentially pushing for, it is not because of independent thinking. It's because of critical thinking. And the place where you are, to me, it seems like you're meaning that, but you're not able to connect the two pieces is, you're saying for 20 years, you have been trained in this templatic way of thinking.
Yes.
Then how do you do independent thinking? I'm saying, no, for 20 years, you are being trained in this way of critically analyzing certain things. And that way of critically analyzing things does not apply in that place. Because critical thinking, the way we were talking about it, and that's why I was asking this question of independent thinking. Is it a thing that is common across all domains, or is it separate? Critical thinking clearly is a separate entity, which means critical thinking about relationships does not use the same mental models as critical thinking about your software job. Or about your engineering job, or about your medical profession, right? And if you've been for 20 years trained in one particular or maybe two particular ways of critical thinking, and they don't align with this other places where you are stuck, then it is no amount of independent thinking, whether personal or externally given to you, will help you break out of the loop. Right? So if I were to go back and very cheekily try to point at it, where for a brief second you set it up, oh, life is a bunch of decision making and these things, I would say, why? Who said?
So life is just about living the template, according to you.
No.
Just take the template that you've been given and just follow track.
I would flip that accusation and say that life is a bunch of decision making is you basically being driven by a singular template of your educational training.
Sure. I know my bounded rationality. I know where I am going wrong and where I am satisfying for that matter.
Right. And to the extent you think about life as a bunch of decisions, and the better decision you can make, the better outcome you are setting yourself up in a place where you are always in an optimizing setup. And whether you like it or not.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that is wrong. Again, I'm not saying that is wrong.
I'm
saying that your primary modality of thinking about life is very strongly informed by your primary critical thinking or problem solving frame.
Yes.
And when it comes down to it, you have only one frame.
Yes, probably.
And or maybe you have more frames, but you just don't think of those other frames as important as this one frame. And probably the reason you're stuck in whatever is your place of getting stuck is because at that point, the problem that you're trying to solve requires a way of critical thinking that is not amenable, or your current frame is not applicable there. Right? So maybe, for example, in relationships, optimizing is not the best way.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, the different models that apply in different right? Boxes. So, that's for sure. Yeah.
But now let's bring it up, right, to the question of I'm not happy.
That's still a decision, and that's still a choice, and that's still I can still think critically and apply different mental models in relationships. Then the act of critically analyzing, I think, is still that still holds across different areas of life. Which model you apply and how you think critically will be custom to a particular area.
Okay. So now I can come down to the way I think about independent thinking a little differently. So independent thinking is not just generating choices, but also having the ability to choose different frames. So forget about generating choices, just about framing the problem in different ways is also independent thinking. That you should have the capacity to be independent of your own tools.
Yes.
Right.
That's what you're saying. Tools is templates for me. Is what I'm saying. Templates.
No, I'm saying that. So like thinking of life as decision making is a lower level tool. I'm not talking about templates.
Sure, it's a template that I'm following.
You need to do that, right?
Sure.
So it is one level removed. It is not of what is the path, the track that you're talking. So up till now, the way you're talking about templates, you're saying about what you called in previously tracks inside a box. And templates or God-given things were essentially a sort of track or a path that was supposed to be the easiest one or the most regular. But I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about one level beyond it. The fact that you're trying to generate trees based on optimizing principle, or based on satisficing principle, or based on whatever is the principle you're applying. The subtle difference that I'm saying is independent thinking includes both those. It operates at both those levels. One is to generate more choices, but where is this generation coming from? For me, that is the sort of like symptom of independent thinking. That is not independent. It is a symptom of independent thinking. Independent thinking is your ability to completely get out of, like, change the tool that you are using. So if I was only looking at life from an optimizing perspective, and that is what I've seen, and that is how I have been taught to analyze the track, and that is why this track makes the most sense. There is a reason why this track is so well established and so many people watch it, right? Because it makes the most sense. It has the highest trade-off value from so many other perspectives. Generating more options also requires you to completely, perhaps, so there are two ways you can have a secondary track that is more potent than the templating track. One is something in the world has shifted, and now the same logic applied to both these paths actually ends up leading this path to have a higher calculation value, right? Or there is something in you that has changed, that you don't look at the world now similarly, and nothing in those paths have changed. But because your heuristic of analyzing these paths have changed, suddenly the value that you achieve from one path is different from the value that you achieve from the other path. So nothing in the paths have changed.
Sure.
What I'm trying to push for is, most of the time, and why I call generating new paths as a symptom of independent thinking, not independent thinking, is because if you are in a templatic path and it has generations of intelligence built into it, and it is high value for that reason, as long as you are in the same paradigm of thinking, it is very unlikely that you'll come up with something drastically different. So the best difference you can come up with is, I'm working for a big company, I should start my own company. Right? For somebody who's looking at the world with very close eyes, very close to the options, for them this might be, oh, look how drastic a difference is this. This person is not going to work for a company and completely let go of their security and do this. But for somebody who's actually not looking at the world so closely and has a bigger difference, they'll be like, but they're both the same paths. The freedom that they're seeking is actually not, it's just freedom from their boss, not freedom from work, right? Not freedom from, so at one point you are slave to your boss, and now you're slave to your customer. You've not really changed the relationship. You've only changed your owner, right? But for somebody who is very close to this thing, for them it might seem like, oh no, this is complete freedom. Again, I am not saying whether they're wrong. They're actually correct. They are now choosing a different path. But it is not as drastically different a path as they could have generated if they completely switched out the model through which they were analyzing all the paths. Right? So if the analysis was, I need freedom from my current boss, then one way of thinking is, I'll just switch my job. I'll go leave this company and I'll go to the other company.
That's why I'm saying that's why I feel that what you're saying is it's not one level removed. It's only, or what how we compare independent thinking. My definition, your definition is not one level removed. It's only a matter. It's a range. It's a matter of range.
Okay.
That at what point do you say that this is independent thinking, or now I'm thinking independently? For you, it's even one level up and more abstract. For me, it's like I agree to what you say. I totally completely agree that yes, that is independent thinking. I just didn't have the words to say it.
Okay.
So I just didn't have because again, for my bounded rationality and because of the words that I have been given and the templates that I have been following are very different from the ones that you have, and your bounded rationality is different. So, so like the words that you use to describe the same concepts will be different, can be different for that matter. Right. So I agree what you're saying is independent thinking, and I don't see my definition being very different from your definition in that sense.
Okay. So if that, I think words being different is not a problem. The meaning being different, or us coming to, if we both understand the concept similarly, it doesn't matter how we will come to similar conclusions. If we are not coming to similar conclusions, then the differences in how we think about those ideas is not just a matter of words. It is substantive. And in one case, it could mean that you need to add words, or in other case, it could mean that I need to sort of really understand that it is a semantic difference and not a real difference. Currently, I am sensing that we are not coming to the same conclusion. And that's where I'm trying to make the distinction of generating options is not independent thinking. It is a symptom of independent thinking. So it is like, if I were to draw an analogy, it is like getting a fever because of COVID.
Yeah.
By treating the fever, you're not treating COVID. Right?
Sure.
One is a symptom, the other is the disease.
Yeah.
The positive side or connotation to it is an independent thinker will generate many new options.
Yeah.
But just having new options doesn't mean that is not the core of it. That is a symptom of it. And the ability to generate new options meaningfully and then deploy your critical thinking on there such that you don't find yourself in the same loop is when you are able to break the frame through which you are analyzing things critically. Because if your critical analysis remains the same, even if I keep giving you more options from the outside, you will still find yourself stuck in the same place, because your analysis will always lead you to your current path. While it is not the best, it is still the most satisfactory path, because I'm not taking so much uncertainty on by going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So if there is somebody who is able to break through their own critical thinking paradigms, right?
Yes.
So when you start to see problems everywhere, you have to start to think about, is the problems everywhere or is the problem with my eye? At some point, you have to be able to draw the inference that it is not that all of these paths are bad. It is maybe the frame through which I'm analyzing all of these paths has some blind spot, right?
Yes.
And the frame by which you're analyzing all these paths is your critical thinking frame. And for me, independent thinking is your ability to have some space.
Somebody who doesn't think independently will not be able to ask that question, will not be able to see that they're looking at things from a certain frame.
Yes, will not be able to. So if it is a frame, somebody who is not independent thinking will not be able to switch out their frames.
Yes.
Right. So even for, so when somebody is not able to switch out their frame, even if they, and this is the independent thinking that, like in my definition, right? So in your definition, it was just generating more options. So if I am not able to switch out my frames, but I still have more options, I will never choose it.
Yeah.
And then you're in that loop.
Yeah.
For you, sitting from the outside, observing this person, you feel like, oh, this person just needs to generate more options, I'll tell him what the new options are, right? And then you are frustrated that, right, they need to change frames. And you are working at giving them more options. Because your analysis of this person's problem is that they lack options. And they lack independent thinking. Right? And I'm saying that the reason...
If I could go back 1 hour and just change the terminology to frames instead of boxes, I think, we would be on the same page. I completely understand the frames analogy. Yes.
Right. So this is where I think and that's why I was not trying to impose that I think about independent thinking a little differently, because I wanted to come to this place where the way we understand the skill that is missing. If we did not have this last 10 minutes of conversation and we moved on to let's figure out what a schooling system or what a society should look like where we are building independent thinking, you would be moving towards a place where people are able to generate more options. And I will be moving towards a place where forget generating more options, where people are able to separate themselves from their critical thinking. That's what I would be thinking, right? And we would be designing very different education systems.
Right.
And partly the reason education system solving the problem of education system is so difficult is that, one, as we've already set up, education system has been tasked with so many different and conflicting goals. Right? But even within that, even if we pick one goal, the way what we think that goal is very different for everybody involved. So unless we have good common understanding, whether it is through new terminology or clarifying old terminology, right? It doesn't matter if you want to use the word independent thinking, we can use some other word, right? But as long as you're able to separate the idea of having more options versus having frames versus being able to change frames, right? Unless we are actually able to separate out those things and agree on the goal of the education system is the frame problem, or is it the option problem, or is it the having really clear lenses on this frame, right? Which I think is the current paradigm, that if you are an engineer, you have really good engineering frames. You understand how to apply differential equations or some finite element method or some agile term, whatever is your domain ka specific thing, and that is what makes you good at your task. Right? So that is having nice, good, clean frames. Single frame is one problem. Having more options is another problem. Being able to change frames is a third problem. Unless we agree on which problem we are trying to solve, we will all be solving something and will not know why we are not agreeing on each other.
No, sure. Right.
So now with all that independent thinking conversation, I don't want to impose that this is the right one. I'm saying until next time, let's think on why this works and why this does not work. And ultimately for me, the ability to
my big question still is that how can we give people, or should people have, or how can the education system be set up so that people always have the ability to change frames when needed?
So I think that's a problem that we can start to, I think that would be a worthy goal for an education system, and we can start to think about it. And before we jump into that, it would be meaningful, because really before we can solve this problem, we have to also understand what does a changing frame mean. Right? So my take on the changing frame situation is that you need to keep switching, not just have good lenses, but you need to keep upgrading your frame over time until you find a frame that helps you navigate or utilize the capacities that the person behind the frame has to its maximum. Right? And for me, that is the idea of self-expression, that your self-expression gets maximal when you choose a frame that matches your abilities. And it is a self-discovery process because you don't know what that is, right? So a really smart artist, like for the simplest of examples, a really smart artist can end up becoming an engineer because they've been trained to be an engineer for 20 years. Right? But does not mean that that is where they are operating at their best.
Yes.
They don't not have to be an engineer, but their frames have to be such that perhaps after a day or after a few hours, they are able to take off their engineering lens, engineering frame, and put on their musician frame, even if they're not highly trained on it. And that is where they feel they are the best at generating things that are meaningful for themselves and for the society. So the idea of self-expression. So partly solving the problem of giving the people ability to switch frames is also, in my opinion, goes hand in hand with solving the last problem of education system, is helping people become better versions of themselves or finding self-expression.
Yes.
Because finding self-expression is not about the outward action that you take, but also about how comfortable are you in your skin in doing the things that you're doing. So which is like finding a frame that seems this is right.
Yes.
So it is a little more ethereal, and I also don't have enough vocabulary to come at you and separate it out. So I'm also now in the same space where you are. So next time let's talk about these things.
Self-expression and independent thinking.
Right. Again, this is my take on what self-expression is. So like I don't want to impose. I was trying to sort of like connect it to how I think independent thinking or life skills is connected to self-expression. So next time we can perhaps start with what you think self-expression is, what generally people would think, what is a templatic view of self-expression, and what the education system should be focusing on if your kid needs to develop this skill of self-expression.
Yes.
Figure out his voice or her voice.
Is that even a skill? Can we even train this? I don't know. Right?
No, I think the skill would be self-discovery. Is how do you go about figuring out that this is the self-expressive frame? Because I could have worn my self-expressive frame at some point and then been like moved on, right? How do you even identify? Which definitely requires a whole bunch of independent thinking, because unless you change your frames, where else? Without changing the frame, you don't even know that you're expressing differently. Okay, awesome. This was great. Let's close for today.
We are way out of time. I have to get going. Thank you. Thanks, Pranav. Really invigorating conversation. Looking forward to next week and talk about independent thinking and self-expression and how the education system fits into it. Right. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Have a nice day. Bye.
You too. Thank you, Aish. Bye-bye.